doing. At last week's last was that last week, Matt? That seems like was the
Yeah, it was.
breakfast last week? Wow,
It was
that
last
seems like
week.
it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I've done like a whole bunch of stuff in the last week, so that it seems like a long time ago. But in that, what we are trying to do is get all of the stakeholders together in the same room and discuss the needs on ML King and meet during the next pancake breakfast and create work groups and really be solution oriented and try to figure out what we can do. And Kirsten Jewell, there could be some pilot money if whatever the solution could be. I don't know how much it is, but we would need to have some solutions for her and some folks from city council are interested and have committed to being there. And so, what we have seen is there's a lot of people that are working on this, and they're all great people, right? But everybody's not in the room. So we're trying to do something really big and try to be as inclusive as possible and get everyone in the room, but all focused on solutions and not pointing fingers and saying, well, you didn't do this and you should have did that and why this and why that. It is what it is. How do we fix the situation as much as we can until things like the Rejuvenation Center open and New Day just had their ribbon cutting and they do a lot of really fantastic programming and are expanding their food program and Food Not Bombs and just all these folks are just kind of coming together and the prayer walkers and just everyone BHEA just there's a lot of awesome people that really care about the folks that are on ML King and just trying to come up with those what can we do, right? Is there a way to have bathrooms or showers or hygiene assistants or dumpsters or whatever that case may be, knowing that the goal and the dream is housing, but we can't get that. What can we get in the interim to be as humane as possible? And Katie, you missed the breakfast, so that's what last week was about. And so my idea was to have folks come in. It would be a half day workshop. So instead of a 2 hour breakfast, it would be, kind of a half day, like a conference basically. And G2 would feed everyone as usual and depending on how it goes, we might actually change from breakfast and go with like barbecue pulled pork sliders and some cilantro tacos. And, Stephanie might really kick it up a notch with some chocolate mousse and whatnot. So we might make it really fancy on that day. But what we wanted to do, Katie, is kind of have folks come in and instead of saying, hi, I'm Marwan Cameron, I'm the executive director of Gather Together, Grow Together. I would just state my name and my agency and just say, this is what we've tried, this is what works, and this is what hasn't worked from our perspective, so that everyone in the room is on the same page and we all have kind of a common language. And then break into work groups, whether folks are online or not, and have the breakout rooms for Zoom going on for folks that couldn't be there to work with folks in the room, and then try to solve some of these issues. So how could we get bathrooms downtown? How could we get a dumpster downtown? How do we get funding for that? How do we get volunteers? How would that work with having the volunteers? Um, and then coming back after maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes of being in those work groups and then sharing it back out to everyone. And then the powers that be, the decision makers and the purse holders, which would be probably the mayor and city council and the county, seeing what could be done and what can be implemented, and then hopefully create some relationships. And I know that's uh, Matt's talking about duplication of effort, and I don't think KHHC is doing quite that, but we're hoping that we can build on all the synergy that that organization has, and just kind of pull people together. And the people that seem to always be missing from these conversations are the actual people that are living in ML King, either as experiencing homelessness, sleeping in their vehicles, or even the renters that are in the surrounding areas. So I just want to get your thoughts there as I kind of unpack a mouthful there for you.
I think it's great. I don't know if I'm qualified to be there. It's just not
Sure you
something
are.
it is the most interesting thing, and it's right behind our building, our 600 Park building. We have a parking lot, and then there's MLK way there. But I know that like the city council, the people who were at our last coalition meeting, the two city council members, Jeff Coughlin and Anna, can't remember her last name, but I know they would really like to be part of these conversations because I think that's it. I think what are the solutions? Like we can all come up with the problems, but nobody can come up with like the known solutions. So just being part of that conversation from the beginning, I think it's a great idea to have a workshop on it. I hope I hope they can all make it. I hope you can get the word out to get everybody there that should be there.
That's the plan. I mean, Diamond Parking, the Marvin Williams Center, Salvation Army. I already talked with the captains, and so you should see them on the conduit here soon. As soon as I schedule that, so they've agreed to come on, which is awesome. Also, a note: while it is hot, Salvation Army has asked if you're going to drop off water. That's great and awesome, but sometimes what happens, people that are well intentioned put the water out, but it's super hot outside, so then people end up consuming really hot water. Just bring it into the Salvation Army, and what they'll do is they'll take it and put it into their coolers, and then they'll put cool water out for folks that are outside. So please do bring the water, just don't drop it off on the corner. Bring it inside so that they can exchange it and put cold water out. So just an updating note. And Matt, you maybe have had a week to process that, and then me running it down there. What could be some most efficient ways for us to kind of work through managing all of these voices and staying on task of being in the solution? Because that is definitely going to be a challenge, right?
I think you got your work cut out for you, Marwan. I heard you got volunteered as mediator. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of tactics, right? We could, we could send some surveys out ahead of time, right, to try to focus in on what people really want to talk about, right? And I think keeping it solution minded, and we can, if we're talking, because you're right, I do think there is a place to hear the laments, right, of different people. I just think this might not be the venue, right, because you want actual actionable solutions out of it. So I think trying to set the ground rules of like this is not the place to lament, and there is, right. There's lamenting is an important piece, but this is just not it. And I think if we really dial in on the different groups of like what resources can they lend, and then we can maybe hear from some of the bigger stakeholders of here's some news. This is what we need. This is what we need. This is what we need, and then folks can kind of come back and say, "This is what I can offer. This is what I can offer," and because that to me seems what the value is, right? Like, so for instance, a lot of times what folks might want is if we do find the money, how are the bathrooms going to be operated, right? So can there be volunteers 24/7? Can some of the other agencies, right? So that would be a match where you can have some maybe funding from the county match up with volunteer staff to actually make something run, right? And so that's just an example. I'm not sure if that's even feasible. There's a lot of issues, right, with bathroom. We've already heard some with you have sharps concerns, right? You have supervision concerns, and also the costs. So that just might be an example of where I see the value of a whole kind of community-wide approach is where can people step up to offer solutions. So that's my 2 cents, but I also know these things are really difficult. You have a lot of folks that are passionate, and I love inclusive. It's great, but also there's a huge diversity of opinion, and I think managing that is going to be a challenge. But I think if anyone can do it, you can do it, Marwan. This is, I think, this is your time to shine.
I love challenges. And, to that end, we just, we're having conversations about this over the last week. And maybe what should happen, like we're trying to operate from a sense of urgency, right? The pancake breakfast isn't until the fourth week of September. Folks are gonna have to go back, talk about what came up in those meetings, do the research, find the funding, and then if it's buying something or renting, a porta potty, whatever the case may be, that's gonna take time, and the weather will already be turning. At the same time, we wanted to cast a net as wide a net as possible. So maybe we need to push it until the middle of October or the fourth week of October, just to ensure that every voice is at the table. We're able to send out those surveys. I literally just had this conversation last night. Send out the surveys. Let the individual organizations answer those
Mhm.
questions. So we already have that information beforehand, so we can share that information out. Like, hey, this is what happened
Yeah.
with the porta potties over here. This is why
Yeah.
this didn't work,
Yep.
and then people can think about the solution instead of
Yes.
hearing it firsthand. And in
I
the
think that's
interim,
2 thumbs
yeah, you
up.
like that? Okay,
Yeah. I
and
think
then in
having a little history of like some of the issues and guardrails would save tremendous amount of time, right? Because basically you're going to have Kirsten from the county explaining all the stuff that we've done in the past, right? And all the
Mhm.
issues and what. And if we can shortcut that, then you really maybe can have a solution or a smaller group, right? And maybe what comes out of this too is just a kind of like an outside another committee that really is focused that we've identified the players, right, of who's actually going to commit resources, and then they gather. But I love that of like getting material out ahead of time of the guardrails. I think that's a tremendously good idea.
sometimes you gotta slow down to go faster, right?
Yes. Yes. And we'll save a ton of time, I think, getting everyone on the same page, right? Of like, these are the parameters. We can't go this way. We can't go this way. This is what we need, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I even thought if I can get that information back, that I can even put the answers in short videos where folks
Yeah.
can watch like 2-minute vignettes on, hey,
Yes.
this is the history of what Kitsap has done with porta potties
Yes.
or yada yada yada. And it's like
Yeah.
boom, I'm fully caught up. All right, now how do we solve this? And then so my thought was, Matt, is if we are gonna push it till October, then maybe at the next breakfast, then we do make the panel for those that haven't had a voice to speak, right? And so they would have the stage and BHA, KCR, city council could come, folks can come and listen and let the folks that are experiencing homelessness and maybe even the renters that are there come and have their voice heard so that when we do have the conversation, they've been heard already, right? And then we know what their concerns are from their point of view because
Yeah.
again, they're not typically in the room when we're trying to
Yeah.
solve these problems and it concerns those
Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah.
And so then we're still having momentum. So what are your thoughts on that as a
I think it's great. I think there's it definitely should be intentional in some thought. Like maybe if maybe it's not everyone, but maybe it's just we have one space for folks that are actually experiencing or on the advocacy side, and they have a day to lament. You have maybe some folks that are on the other side of the issue have a different day, right? I don't know. I do think um, spaces for lament can be really powerful, but we definitely want a space where people feel safe. And I think you do that really, really well. But just might be something to think about. But I do think that would be great. And then it's recorded and then people can view that later, right? To really hear. And then the solutions meeting is just that solutions that we don't, you know, we aren't, the precious time that we have all together, right? Where is not consumed with people that really need spaces to talk about the pain and the suffering and bearing witness to that is super important. But yeah, I do think that's a really good idea. Just with the caveats, I might want to think about what that looks like and how to make that safe, safe for folks who want to participate.
and there are a lot of concerns from their side also. So, I'm super flexible because I want to be in the solution. And maybe no one is there and it's just audio and no cameras because there was some concerns with,
Mm-hmm.
folks that are experiencing homelessness being identified either for DV or issues with the
Sure.
police, so that way they can still have their voice heard, but they don't have to fear potential reprisal or attack. So that could be done, or maybe they may want to invite certain organizations that they would be comfortable with
Mm-hmm.
being in the room and hearing. So that's kind of where I'm thinking, because all of it needs to be done right. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone needs to be together in the solution, but also the voiceless need to be heard at the same time. And I think
Yeah.
we can pull that off here on the conduit.
Yeah, I definitely I agree. A lot of thought of regarding what people are comfortable with. Maybe some folks will show up who don't want to be on camera. Maybe we have advocates on camera, right? Or maybe we have you on camera. Maybe because I do think seeing people's faces is powerful, but definitely not if anyone's uncomfortable and have options all different. Even if someone's speaking on their behalf, if they only want to be here, but they want to write something. I think there's a lot of ways to communicate that and to maintain, you know, or have folks not be identified and maintain a sense of being anonymous while still participating.
Yeah, I think the thing is trying to center, the folks that are being impacted and
Yeah,
still making it an effective, worthwhile endeavor to
yeah,
move forward. So, and maybe I can even get some of my facilitator folks, buddies, to come and help guide that conversation, and I can just
yeah,
host,
yeah,
to kind of navigate that because I'm definitely not trained in that. So to have someone
yeah.
professional in that capacity that can use the language and kind of work through that would be great. I don't know how much you miss Katie, but Matt loves it.
No, I think it's exciting. It sounds like you have a few things to work out. But the idea is just doing it. I think even within an organization of like 90 people, the idea of having cross team collaboration is a lot more difficult than it sounds. And that's the ideal, right? To get everybody's voices heard and things like that. But people stray away from it because you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to do it right, and then you don't know what the next step is. You can't promise everything, but who's going to make that next step? So I definitely would support anybody who's willing to make that happen. And I think it's nice that we have a specific point of reference that we want to help, because I think those solutions could probably be used in other areas once we kind of identify what would work here. So
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so stay tuned, everyone, for that. Like I said it probably will happen sometime in October, the big one where we all do the collaborative, and I'll work on my team to, kick it up a notch from pancakes to, some of G2's more signature items, and
make sure
we'll
there's a
work.
spinning wheel and prizes too.